attention here right now. Love from the outset, yours from the start. You broke through the darkness to help my heart. I'm lost to the world, in you forever. In a love that never fades, in a hope that never strays. You'll never let go. This love is wild, wild. You got me reaching for the sky. Now I'm standing over why you'll never let go. This love is wild, wild. We're breaking the silence with heavenly sound. Louder than thunder, shaking the ground. When fear comes to find me, I will be found. Here in your presence, your freedom is now. I'm lost to the world, in you forever. In a love that never fades, in a hope that never sways. You'll never let go. This love is wild, wild. You got me reaching for the sky.
Good evening. It's April 17th. I'm your host, Andrew Moffat, and this is a serious podcast. Well, that video certainly dropped in unexpectedly.
Oh, Andy.
Welcome to This is a Serious Broadcast, or podcast. I can't even get the name right. It's good to be with you again. How's your week been? It's been another week on self-isolating and being away from the world. How's that going? How are your parents doing? Are they doing all right? Are they? All right, good. I hope you guys are doing good too. It's good to have you with us. It really has been just continued craziness, hasn't it? I think Canada is up over 30,000 now. Alberta is, for a while, I was watching Alberta and BC together, and BC was ahead of us by about 100 or 150, and then we've slowly caught them and passed them, and we're basically 200 people ahead of them now each day in terms of how many people have caught the flu. Anyway, there you go. Apparently I saw a graph today and it looks like we're starting to flatten the curve. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'm not sure how much longer we can keep doing this. People seem to think that we're going to be doing it for months yet. I don't know how we're going to survive. What do you think, Sam?
All I'm feeling is like it's about time for me to get outside with friends. I'm really missing that.
Yes. If I had friends, I'd miss being with them too. I know. I do have some friends.
I pretend to be your friend.
You do a good job pretending. That's good. Yeah. Hey, I want to make a quick announcement. Next week, we are not going to have a serious podcast next week because it is the annual Secret Church Friday night. That's the Bible study with the speaker David Platt. You're able to get that online, so you can watch it from the comfort of your very own home. If you're interested in doing that, and I would encourage you to really consider it, because David Platt is a fantastic preacher. It's 6 hours. It's no joke. It's a heavy night, but it is totally worth it to get some really good, solid preaching from a top-rate preacher like David Platt. If you want to be involved in that and do that, you can get in touch with Pastor Greg. We'll remind you about that at the end of the podcast as well. But there you go. I think that's all the announcements I'm going to make at this point right now. But we got question of the day. So question of the day, is a hot dog a sandwich? Defend your answer in 2 sentences or less. So you can type in your answer and put it up on the live stream. If you are trying to figure out how you can do that, you can log into YouTube with a Gmail account and then set up your own YouTube channel. It takes like no time at all. And then you can you're eligible to be able to type in answers and they'll pop up on the screen with us here. So yeah, is a hot dog a sandwich? Defend your answer in 2 sentences or less. Oh, one other thing to say. Colton Sterling, I understand that potentially you're watching tonight. Hi.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good to have you out. All right, buddy. Okay, at this time, we're going to pan that camera over to Sam on the skit couch.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I know that this is usually a kind of skit funny thing that we do, but I've been kind of busy this week, and I haven't really had time to do my weekly thank you notes. So I was hoping that I'd be able to do that just like right now in front of you guys. You guys made me listen. I think Jake's got some sick thank you music for us. We can give that a listen right now. Yeah, okay, so yeah, thanks for letting me do this, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you, printer paper. You did your best, but you're not a good substitute in the bathroom.
Ooh.
I learned that the hard way.
Hey, friend of mine in junior high, her mom, back when the Iron Curtain was up, with the Cold War, her mom had this trip over to Russia. She was in her hotel room, and she came down for dinner, and they said, how's your hotel room? She said, it's great. She says, but the toilet paper is super rough. I wish I had, and she named whatever brand was her favorite back home in Canada. After supper, she went back up, went into the bathroom. They had changed out her toilet paper to that new paper. And it's not like she told the staff that. She just told one of her travel mates. So somebody was listening. Big brother was listening. Yeah,
All
true
right.
story.
Okay.
Jennifer Fowler. That was her mom. Sorry, continue thanking.
Thank you, Alberta, for keeping me guessing about spring's true beginning.
Ain't that the truth?
Ain't it? Kind of getting sick of the snow on the ground. Thank you, COVID-19, for creating guilt-free overuse of my snooze button every morning.
I wish I could sleep in. I can't sleep in anymore.
I tell my Google Home to turn off every morning, and then I go back to bed.
Are any of you parents struggling with not being able to sleep in anymore like you could when you were a kid? Oh, yeah.
Thank you, showers, for giving me the forum to finally win all of my arguments. Yeah, that really does it for me. Can't win them in person, but I don't know, the hot water or something, it really does it for you.
Yep. Time to stand there and think.
Thank you, Pastor Brent, for live stream church in my pajamas. Thank you, gentleman's nod, for helping me to feel like one of the boys. Thank you, agreeable laugh, for helping me look like I heard what was said in a conversation.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, like thank you, laugh, because you pretend like you actually heard what they said.
Sorry, what was that again?
You like it's thank you, agreeable laugh, for helping me look like I heard what was said.
Yeah.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, Andy Moffat. Thank you. Hey, you. for filling in when I forget people's names.
Hey, you. I like these thank you notes.
Thanks, I wrote them myself. Thank you, paper plates, for landing upside down to hide the wasted food I'm throwing out at the potluck. Yes, I do that. Oh, this one's very personal. Thank you, Dad, for questioning me on whether or not my choice of style is an accident.
Well, is it? You still haven't given me an answer.
Yes, I do not like coffee.
Perfect.
Those are the thank you notes. Thank you for bearing with me for that. And just before we toss it back over to Andy, we got some prayer requests for you guys for this week. Recently, there's been a baby born to a family, and that made us think that this is a good week to pray for all the newborn babies, that they'd have a good health, and to pray for the young families, the young mom and dads, that they'd be strong during this time. So, yeah, that's our prayer request for the young babies and the young families. So let's toss it back over to Andy.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you. It is having a baby is, I mean, it's awesome. It's great, but there's stress involved. And I imagine that for young parents and families at this time, having a baby at this time during COVID-19 and all the shutdowns, and then the fears about the transmission of the flu and hospitals being a hotbed for the flu, that must be tough. So I think that is a good challenge to pray for them, that they would have God's peace during this time. Hey, Jake, has anybody typed in any answers about hot dog? Is it a sandwich or not?
Yes. Jenny Moffat says no, because it's a hot dog.
Huh.
Aiden Gabori says yes, because it's between two buns.
Nice.
Reasonable.
You got a real battle going on.
Matt Shields says the definitive answer is yes, because there's a kingdom of sandwiches, and then you have the class of horizontal cased meats, and under that, in the phylum, is hot dog.
Is
Nice.
that 2 sentences or more than or less than?
Whatever was a
with
good
his
answer.
with his punctuation, it's technically only 2 sentences.
All right.
Yeah, that's good. Matt Shields, good to hear from you. We're sorry you're not with us this week, but how's it going? Are we doing all right? How's Sam doing in the skit couch? He's no Matt Shields, but how's he doing? Okay, good.
Also, Shane Michela says if Sam is Jim Allen, does that make Andy Steve Higgins?
Yeah, that's good. I'm not as clever as that guy is, though. Oh, good. All right. So that's good. Keep bringing those answers in if you want. We'd love to hear your defense of your position. Very good. All right. Okay. It's time for devotional. Have we got those slides ready to go? Perfect. So this week on Monday and Wednesday, we were talking about faithfulness. And in part 1, we looked at how we can demonstrate faithfulness by simply carrying out our daily lives. And I told you that story about the boy on the beach, who a young boy who tried to help a man up who had fallen over in his wheelchair and couldn't get up on the beach. And he wasn't able to do it. He wasn't strong enough. And so he came running back to his dad, and he was sad and he was distraught because he couldn't get that guy up. And his dad said, "Son, you did more than you know," because his dad had the benefit of being able to see the whole beach. And what the son didn't see was that his actions inspired a group of young men and women who were strong enough to come up the beach and help the man after the boy had left. So the dad said, "No, you did help the man, even though you yourself weren't able to do it. You inspired others to do it." And I've said before on this podcast, and I've said many times at youth group, God doesn't ask you to be successful. He asks you to be faithful. And your faithfulness might be the thing that spurs on somebody else to serve God as well. And they might be the ones that have the success. And that's great. It's not just okay, it's great. So, faithfulness, just in simply carrying out those day-to-day actions that you believe God is calling you to when he touches your conscience and you think, I should do that. Go ahead and do it. You may or may not be successful. That's okay. But you don't know who's watching, and you don't know how God's going to use that little bit of faithfulness. So keep at it. On part 2 on Wednesday, we looked at how God looks at the heart of a person. And I used the example of my son, Jake, who when he was a young lad had trouble saying the word truck, and he had a hard time with the TR sound, and he would always end up saying a bad word. It was a bad word. It rhymed with truck. It rhymed with duck. It rhymed with luck, but it was a bad word. You know the one.
Darn it.
Yeah. So every time we'll use the word duck, every time he saw a truck, he'd be like, hey, Dad, look, a duck, 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 duck. And he was saying a bad word. And people would be like, oh, and because my son's dropping the F-bomb. Did I scold Jacob? No, because I knew what was on his heart and what he was trying to say. And he was trying to say truck. He just didn't quite have that sound down yet in his mouth, but he was getting there. God looks at our heart, and we will serve God as best we can, and we will make mistakes, and we will struggle. And that's okay, because God looks at your heart. And the biblical example was David. David was a man after God's own heart because he was willing to be humble, to humble himself before the Lord, and he blew it big time. A number of times, some really serious sin, but he was willing to keep striving and trying and humble himself before the Lord. And that's why, even despite his sin, God called David a man after his own heart, because he was willing to humble himself and ask for forgiveness and try and correct when he had steered wrong. So, the third part, is God worthy of our faith? Can we trust him? Think about all the things you know about God. Think about all the things that God has demonstrated who he is. And you know, even if you just sat down and thought about it for a minute and thought about all the different things that you know of, all the stories, all the examples in the Bible, all the biblical characters, if you were to start at the beginning and go all the way through, even just with what you remember yourself, you would see how God has demonstrated himself to be faithful. Think about it. In creation, when we think of the creation story, we see that God is a God of order, that he's a God of creativity, that he's all-powerful, that he's knowledgeable, that he's present, that he's that kind of a God. When we think of Adam and Eve, we think of him being a generous giver. Look at all of the things that he gave. But he was a lawgiver as well, right? You can have all of this, but just don't eat from that one tree. Think about Abraham and all the promises that he made to Abraham and how he kept those promises. What about Moses? As Moses went from back to Egypt after being in exile for 40 years, went back to Egypt and delivered the people. God delivered his people out of slavery. Think about each story, all the different characters, whether it's from Joseph to David to Daniel, Esther, Ruth. He was a miracle worker. He had his hands on creation, and at times he stuck his finger in and moved things around and was involved for his purposes. He delivered people out of their distress, and he communicated who he was through those miracles. Think about the Nativity, Christ's birth. That God loves us enough to send his son, that Jesus loved us enough to leave the trappings of heaven to come. And then the miracles and the parables that Jesus performed over his lifetime, showing dominion over time and distance and nature and quantity and our bodies, that he has a good way for us to live, that he's concerned about life here on earth. There are so many more examples. And the passion, willing to die for us so that we could be spared, able to defeat death, worthy, that he's worthy of being called Lord and Savior. That's the God that has revealed himself to us through the scriptures. And that's a couple of minutes giving some examples off the top of the head with really not great explanation either, but just all those examples in a couple of minutes. And there are so many more of how God has demonstrated himself true to his character, faithful to us, loving, kind, gracious, merciful, holy. Can you trust a God like that demonstrates himself in those ways? Absolutely. He is a God worth putting your faith in. In fact, to not put your faith in God, in a God like that, is nothing short of foolishness. Be faithful and remember that your God is faithful to you. All right. In all these things and so many more, he's proven that he is faithful and worthy of our faith in him. Okay, so that's a week on faith. Next week, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the week after. So Monday, Wednesday, we're going to look at peace. And you know what? I might do a separate Friday devotional on peace because we're not going to do the podcast because of Secret Church. All right. You know what? Now is the time. We're going to pan that camera back over to Samuel, and he's going to read a bedtime story.
That's right. It's bedtime story time. So please go get your blankets, your pillows, your hot cocoa. Actually, you don't have time for that. But get anything, get comfortable. We're reading Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, yeah.
Which might be one of my favorites other than The Giving Tree. Except the artist's face on the back of The Giving Tree always scared me, if you know what I'm talking about.
I liked Hippos Go Berserk.
That was a good one. Anyways, let's get into it. It's a riveting story.
And Click, Clack, Quack, or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Don't get me started listing off kids' books.
Where the Wild Things Are. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another, his mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, "I'll eat you up." That seems like a reasonable response.
My mother would have said that I was saucy.
Well, Max was sent to bed without eating anything. Max. That very night, in Max's room, a forest grew. And grew and grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around. Max.
Sounds like they have a water issue in the house.
Yeah.
They should be concerned about mold.
Probably bugs too.
Oof.
And an ocean, that's a water issue, tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day. And in and out of weeks and almost over a year to where the wild things are.
Whew.
That's a scary looking wild thing in the ocean. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. That sounds terrible. Till Max said, "Be still," and tamed them with a magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes and blinking once. Without blinking once, he didn't even blink. And they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all. I think you did that to me a couple times. Look at me without blinking. Scared me right up.
They may have.
And they made him king of the wild things. And now, cried Max, let the wild rumpus start.
Rumpus.
Rumpus.
That's a great word.
And they danced in front of the moon and howled. They climbed on trees. And he even rode the wild things like a real king does. Now stop, Max said, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper.
Sounds familiar.
What a hypocrite. And Max, the king of all wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then, all around from far away across the world, he smelled good things to eat. That definitely sends me running. So he gave up being king of where the wild things are, But the wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go. We'll eat you up. We love you so." We'll eat you. We love you. Those go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And Max said, "No!" The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. And sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through the day. And into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot. Oh, Max learned nothing.
No, he really didn't.
But it's a great story. That's the story for the night. I hope you loved it. I certainly do every time. And now we got our challenge. Challenge for this week. This week, we want you to memorize Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. Again, that's chapter 12, verses 1 and 2.
Did anybody do the challenge of the week from last time?
Yes. If you did, put it in the comments, please. We'd love
I
to
want
hear
to know
it.
what it was. What was the challenge of the week? Was that the one where we were supposed to pray, call up a friend that you know that doesn't know Jesus, and then talk with them and pray for them? Was that what it was?
Not sure.
Here.
Anyways, so those two verses. Romans is a great book, and it's just full of great stuff. And Romans 12, 1 and 2 are two excellent
Or was
verses.
it read book of... No, reading was a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
We're just kind of lost on what you did last week. But if you did it, good on you.
Yeah, we did.
So,
Pretty sure we did.
Romans 12, 1 and 2 is this week. You can do it. Jake and I had to do it when we were kids for our grandpa, and it was worth it. Anyways, for closing announcements, we're going to send it back to Andy, and he's going to close it out for us.
Well, just before that, we have some more answers for our question tonight. There's
Oh,
quite
good.
an argument going on in our
I love it.
chat. Now,
Wait,
Ben-
wait. Who's in the argument?
So we got Ben, we got Matt,
Ben.
we got Ben Ellingsgard,
Oh, Ben
we
Ellingsgard.
got Shane Michalis again, and Jenny Moffat.
Oh,
Now
really? Jenny
Ben
Moffat's
says-
arguing? No. She's going to be like, oh, Andy, how could you say that? I'll be, okay. It's all good.
So Ben Ellingsgard says, "No, how could you be gross enough to even classify a hot dog as a sandwich? You don't have hot dogs for lunch, and you don't have sandwiches for supper." It's pretty wow. I prompted Ben to listen to "Sandwiches Are Beautiful" by Bob King.
Oh,
That might persuade his answer.
They are
Matt
beautiful and
says,
fine.
"Ben, I'm sorry, but that is objectively false. Hot dogs and sandwiches are not confined to strict meal constructs. They are free to be enjoyed anytime. I will tell you, I've had hot dogs for breakfast more than once."
That's the sound of a college student.
Yeah.
And Shane Michalis says, "Yeah, like egg sandwiches for breakfast. Also, not a bad option."
Yes.
Jenny Moffat says, "Question of the day, no, because if someone says, 'Do you want a sandwich?' no one says, 'Sure, I'll have a hot dog.' They will say, 'No, thank you. I would prefer a hot dog.'"
That is a
that-
clever...
That is a good point.
That is a clever argument.
Now, Matt says, "I think we need to acknowledge the wonder that is the hot dog. To degrade it to a mere sandwich is travesty. It's like calling filet mignon a mere steak." Now-
Filet mignon.
Filet mignon. Now, Aiden Gabori says, "On the internet, it says that a hot dog is a sandwich." So
The internet ruleth.
I
Shane
think
says, "Aiden, do you believe everything that is on the interweb?" So I think we all
Oh.
got
I think
blocked that out.
a hot dog classifies as a sub, and because it classifies as a sub, it's a sandwich.
Subway, let our sandwich artists serve you today.
Yes, it's like a class of sandwiches. Now,
Right?
Shirley Rook says, "A hot dog is a hot dog at my house," right, Jake and Sam?
Who said that?
Absolutely. Grandma.
Love you,
Grandma!
Love you, Grandma.
We love Grandma.
Awesome.
Okay, are those
right.
all?
That's it. We'll send
All
it
right,
over to
time
him.
to pan it back to Andy for closing announcements.
Oh. We made that mistake again. It's not announcement time. It is announcement time, but it's not my announcement time. It's supposed to be back with Sam. So we need to pan it back there.
Hi, I'm Sam.
That's right. Good and loud into that mic.
Okay, who's ready for some announcements? Okay, so just a reminder that next week there is no podcast because of Secret Church. And if you would like to know more about Secret Church, be in touch with Pastor Greg. But you can also look on the Facebook page for First Baptist Church, and there's some more information on it there.
There might even be information on the First Baptist website as well. It is up on Facebook. You're right, Karis. Thank you. But if you want to get in touch with Greg himself, you can call the church during the week, or you can go to the website and find his email address there and email him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also Monday and Wednesday, there are devotionals that are available all day. And also, don't forget about the challenge of the day, which is reading Romans 12, 1 to 2.
Memorizing it.
Yeah, memorize it. Memorizing scripture is good. And then also don't forget to pray for the families with newborn babies.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Standing pan man, Karis Sterling, our guest this
yeah.
evening. Hey, Karis, let me ask a few questions. You spent some time overseas this last semester. Where were you?
I was in the home country.
The
England.
homeland.
Yep.
Yes.
I was in England for the past 6 months.
And you were at which school?
I was at Capenry Hall.
Good experience?
Yeah.
You'd recommend
Yeah,
it?
it was good. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah?
I think I'd recommend it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. There was it was a little hard because isolation-wise, I feel like it'd get to you because you're kind of in the middle of nowhere. So it gets to you a little bit, but I mean, everyone has such good practice with isolating now. So
Yeah, that's right.
maybe you'll do fine.
But that didn't affect you when you were over there, like the COVID-19 isolation, did it?
It did a little bit. Yeah, we heard a lot about it.
Okay.
But then, yeah, a lot of people were gonna travel in between, gonna travel once the semester ended, but they weren't able to. So that was kind of unfortunate for those who wanted to travel. But yeah, it didn't really affect us because we kind of all left near the very beginning of it all. So
Nice.
yeah, it wasn't too bad.
But when you got home, you had to self-isolate
Yeah.
for 2 weeks, didn't you?
Yep.
How was
kinda
that?
Sad. It was it was nice to know that I wasn't the only one isolating. It helped that the church wasn't getting together because I was really looking forward to coming back to church
Right.
and stuff. But yeah, then church was canceled, so I was disappointed, but I wouldn't have been able to go anyways. So it was kind of a relief, I guess.
Cool.
So
Good. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being with us tonight. Would you do us the honor of closing the night in prayer?
yes,
Thank
I can
you.
do that. Okay, let's pray. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for today. Thank you that we're still able to get together as believers one way or another. I do thank you for technology in this way, God, that we are able to be in touch with each other and do this podcast and also just listening to Pastor Brent's sermon still online. And yeah, I just pray for all these church families that have had new babies. I just pray that you'll keep them healthy. And yeah, this is a weird time for all of us to experience, but I just thank you that we're all in this together, Lord. And I just pray that, yeah, we will be reminded of who you are still throughout all of this. And yeah, thank you that you are sovereign over all of this, God. And thank you for tonight. And I just pray that you'll bless it. And in your name, amen.
Thank you, Karis.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. And here we are. We can sit less than 2 meters apart because we've been in the same house for way too long.
He made me. I didn't want to sit by him.
Thank you for joining us on This Is a Serious Podcast. Remember, we won't catch you next week because of Secret Church. We'll see you the week after. And, of course, Mondays, Wednesdays for the devotional. Have yourselves a very Merry Christmas. Good night.
I now give you Sandwiches Are Beautiful by Bob.
Above all distraction, above every doubt, you have my attention. attention.